Okay, so what's on the agenda first is the consider resolution calling an election on proposal to enter into a general obligation. Oh, sorry about that. That's why we did that, right? Roll call.
Parker? He's online but muted.
Oh, there,
Here.
Perfect. Ms. Linich?
he's working.
He is at work. Yep. And then Olson?
Here.
Sittergruen?
Here.
Chisel?
Here.
Whittle?
Here.
Neal?
Thank you. Consider resolution calling an election on proposal to enter into a general obligation loan agreement and borrow money thereunder in a principal amount not to exceed $10 million to $18 million. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Travis.
All right, so this is the same title we use for the discussion on the fire station municipal building and bond issuance here. During the last council meeting, we talked about the three options that ISG is under contract to help us evaluate, with the first one being a demolition, well, what we termed the renovation plus addition. So that option included removing the apparatus bays and rebuilding those, as well as an addition, and then heavy remodel the rest of this building, but to serve fire department use only. The second option was demo of everything on site, start over, new construction, again, fire department only. And then a third option of retaining all the services on the current site, but again, demolition, new construction, achieving all those services in site. So that council conversation seemed to be, and I hate to generalize this, and please speak out if, but it seemed to be it was tracking towards that option of including all the services on the existing site. And in further conversations with ISG staff, which Josh Gross is online as well, he actually posed the initial question, which got me thinking about, he asked about the fire department. And actually I should stop. I shouldn't go down that path first. During the conversation on the council, at the council meeting, it was asked for ISG, what's the difference between the 2-story as cost estimated for all services on site versus 1-story all services on the site? And so ISG did provide an estimated cost associated with that, as well as a layout. And so I'm going to try and do a screen share here.
Do you have that in the Dropbox, or are you just going to screen?
Correct. So it is in Dropbox. Let's see here. Okay. So ISG evaluated. Here's what we're calling option 3A, which 3 again was all services as part of this project. So 3A was a 2-story on the existing site. 3B was a demolition plus new construction, but all departments on 1 story. And then 3C was, we were talking about the code requirement differences between a fire department, which is considered an essential service, and it has more stringent code requirements than a city hall. We're non-essential as it relates to the building code. So this concept of 2 separate standalone buildings, one needing less stringent code requirements, was also evaluated. The cost between those resulted in the 2-story version being the lowest cost. The next highest cost, the 1-story all-in-one building, followed by option 3C, which was 2 separate standalone buildings. being the highest cost of over $20 million.
Oh, we can give it to that one.
So with that, Josh also asked me, when we were looking at this option here, he asked, has it ever been discussed on having the fire station on the north side of the property?
Which number is that?
Sorry, this is on page 18 of the council packet. It is labeled as option 3C. When Josh and I were talking about this, he asked if there was ever any discussion on having the fire station on the north side of the property, and talked about there hadn't been, we haven't really evaluated. We've all seemed to have been pretty much focused on the existing site of the fire station municipal building, that everything is contained within the site. Even though we have gotten back from the Army Reserve Center some of that additional property to the north. So there is a benefit if we were to do any project that includes new construction on the north side of this property, including the fire station, or even if it's the fire station standalone. It's kind of the school project where it's you allow the building to keep operating while the new construction happens next door. So with that, ISG evaluated what we're going to call 2A. Now it's shown here.
Isn't it too
That's
big?
the original. 2A is the new construction, fire department only, shown here. This is the original. And then said, all right, what about that space back here on the north side? So it does fit, and we can position that rectangle or shape it however, fitting on the north side of the property. This would again be a fire department only project, single story. And then once that is up and operational, we could tear off the apparatus bay, which is the portion that was proposed to be tore off and replaced in any other project, and renovate the existing. Or the same footprint, if it's 2 stories, could also be considered with a complete removal once it's operational back here on the north side. So it would allow for continuous municipal operations while the new construction happens next door, and then we demo once it's up and running.
What did that
Throwing,
price?
what's
What
that?
did that price look like?
So this price here is the same. So this is essentially the same building as option 3 that we discussed before.
Okay.
If it's a new construction here, it's the same demolition cost and everything. It's just the building's placed somewhere else. However, there has been some updating to those numbers with the soil conditions. Now this is a bit of an asterisk. So in this location, this used to serve as a dump, and so there's plenty of fill material in here. And so these numbers have increased slightly to accommodate for those soil conditions. If we move north, supposedly that is not a former dump, but it is a former riverbed. And so that has other soil conditions as well. So that's another factor to be considered here. In addition to this potential here, being the glutton for punishment I am, after our meeting last Tuesday night, I threw out a Hail Mary email Wednesday morning to Bank of the West or BMO, a couple of contacts that I had made through trying to talk with them previously, that they had stopped talking to me in May, and said, hey, we're about to take action on this. Is there any desire to talk about the Water Street location, either in a lease or a potential land sale swap of some kind because the drive-through location has less than 4 years remaining on your lease of city-owned land. Lo and behold, that gets a response and held a meeting this morning, virtual meeting with 2 in their real estate division. Kirsten was able to join me because this way I had a second set of ears that could hear, ask any questions that may have come to his mind. But they said they're open to both a lease or a potential land sale swap of those 2 sites. When we talked about the timeline before November, they said, well, obviously that's a tight timeline, certainly not going to close on our project. They thought it could be a realistic, to have a MOU or a letter of intent by that time. What that would allow is if council wants to pursue that, we could still end up with essentially this phase, or this project I'm showing here, that's just a new fire station on the north side and a full demolition of the existing building, and we renovate the BMO building. And that's where our administrative park rec services are all offered out of. So that's an additional wrinkle to throw in. With all that being said, I confirmed with the bond counsel the legal ballot language that we have drafted at this point, as long as the dollar amount is increased to reflect a potential project, it doesn't bind us to the physical location of 400 Claiborne Drive. So if we say we want to bond $18 million for a new construction and or rehabilitation of municipal building, fire department, municipal building to house administration, park rec, code enforcement, whatever we throw in it, that has to go to that project specified, but is not limited to this physical location. That's a lot to dump on you right now. So what questions do you have? And Josh Gross with ISG is also online.
Could you have talked with the fire department? That'd
Not
be my-
necessarily all of them, but a number of them. And that's
that would've
been
been
relayed through
one
some
question.
channels. I see a few in attendance and sitting out in the hallway. But talked about what does this mean? Does it impact response times? I know there was discussion. We tried to locate a possible study of some kind on response times when we were talking about whether it was this site versus the the UPS site or the creamery. We weren't able to locate an actual study as much as it just discussed. Still looking for that, but what I'm getting at is those that I have spoken to don't believe that there's any real impact on response as a result of it on the north side of the property as opposed to its current sitting. Again, the added benefit is we don't have to figure out what we're going to do with the fire department for 18 months while if this building's tore down or the apparatus bays are tore off and then a new construction project happens, we don't have to figure out what to do with them for the next 18 months.
And we don't actually have to figure out that either, right? So we could get soil samples back, we could investigate the cost per the soils, but still have our bond rolling along.
Correct.
Okay, because it does seem like, I mean, I'm supportive of the north, but concerned about the soil.
Did he indicate, like, whether a riverbed as opposed to a dump was would pose more problems for the builder, or did he not render any opinions that one way or the other?
I don't think we honestly pivoted quite quickly with whole Bank of the West discussion and everything, or BMO, but no, we weren't able to get cost estimates on this type of project at this point. Josh, I know you're an architect, but did you have any conversations with Geotech on which is a better solution, a former dump site or a former riverbed?
Or the least bad solution?
Yeah, you guys are really stuck between bad and worse there. Yeah, I didn't, just because of the late breaking nature of this, I didn't have a chance to talk with anybody. Just we did, I mean, the updated pricing did include that added bump for the current site, and that was the cost that that was covering was essentially piers and then grade beams, which is basically as far down the conservative spectrum as you can go. So short of having to completely remove all the topsoil and replace it, I think the cost, just my opinion here, the cost, you know, covers whatever solution would have to be implemented on the north side of the site. But obviously, geotechnical testing would be needed, and then a full structural design to determine exactly, you know, what's required. I can get a back of the napkin opinion from our structural engineer, but again, that's uh, without any geotech input. So
And that pier system that we learned about at some point goes into bedrock, so I assume that either way, they're gonna use that same pier system. They're just different.
yeah, if we were to tear down the current municipal building and rebuild on that footprint, that is what would be needed.
So,
Can I go ahead, Travis?
oh, I was just gonna go down to the cost, but
Yeah, I wanted. There's a lot of options, and I'm sure a lot of our heads are swimming. I think it might be helpful to say two things that I think the council can all agree on, but I'd like to hear if that's not true. One, I'm committed to continuing to try to get this process moving forward with a ballot question in November, and I think that that's where we're all at. And it seems like that's possible even if we follow any of these paths. It might be easier to follow some paths than others, but it seems at least like we could move forward with ballot language based on what you said.
correct. Yep. So as long as the dollar amount covers the costs associated with any aspect of the project, whether it's this site, off-site, or again, if it's all on-site, certainly covered. But if the council were to pursue what we knew as option 3 last time, which is new construction of all the combined services on the site, and explore BMO as a potential location, and if that falls through, a potential option is also renovate the existing that's remaining. That could also be an option. Or, again, moving forward with the construction for all combined services in a new facility on the north side of the site. So what we could at least tell the public, if this is the option the council wishes to pursue, we could tell the public that it is going to be a new construction for a fire station, and we are continuing to explore the options for the best solution for administration, park rec, council, code enforcement, all the existing services in one of these 3 options. And then we can work in the next 2 months to determine if BMO if that's still an option, viable solution. We can do the soil conditions to say maybe geotech comes back and for some reason says you can't do a 2-story there. I shouldn't even throw that out. I don't know if that's an actual thing. But what I'm getting at is we have 2 months to figure out on the administration, park rec, and others side of things, but can still tell the public it will include a new fire station.
So essentially, we have to figure out an amount we want to put on the bond issue at this point in time, is our main focus that we have
Correct.
to come up with before this September 18th deadline or whatever it is to submit that.
Correct. And
Okay.
it's also important to note that even the question on the ballot is a not to exceed.
Right.
So if we pursue the new construction of all services on the north side of the site, and it's the most costly, and the other options then are still left on the table, we don't have to borrow the full amount. We could dial it back based on what the option selected for the other services outside of the fire department.
We just can't exceed that amount.
Correct.
Right.
I know that this puts us in a position where we aren't coming to the people with, as much specificity in a concrete plan as possible, but there won't be anything in addition to what we're asking for, and it might be that we're able to experience significant savings by pursuing some of these other options. Has staff had a chance to look into what Bank of the West would mean in terms of city investment? Because that would need to happen as part of this process as well.
Right. Tried to get in there. Haven't been able to get their branch manager to show me the site yet, as well as trying to talk with corporate. I haven't been able to get in and look at the upper floors. That's the biggest question mark. About 2-3 years ago with the restroom discussion, I was able to look at the lower level. It's dated, appears to be fairly structural sound. I mean, even from the exterior, I haven't noticed any physical deficiencies there, but I do not know the current condition of any of the HVAC, any of the electrical, anything IT related. It is about a 14,000 gross square foot building, which is the space programming for admin, park rec, council, and ancillary, which is lobby space and restroom stuff like that, was 9,340. So it is probably a full floor larger than needed based on the space programming, but based on the remodel cost per square foot and the new construction cost per square foot on the admin side of things, I would think that we'd be lower than a new construction for that same square footage.
I'm very intrigued by the idea of a relocation of just public-facing city services, not public safety, which is a different kind of public-facing city service, but admin, parks and rec. I like the idea of that being on Water Street, kind of more accessible, fewer barriers to getting there, and I love the idea of being able to ensure that public restrooms were available where the people are. I love the idea of being able to invest in creating a connection between the North Alley and our commercial district that is welcoming to visitors and kind of easy to use the parking and pop into Main Street. So I think there's a lot of positives to the point where I think it's worth, and to say nothing of the fact that we might experience significant savings over new construction pursuing this. I think it's worth pursuing this one pretty hard, even if it creates some uncertainty. That's where I'm at.
I agree.
When that building was built, I know that Michigan County Development and Tourism Chamber would have their meetings upstairs. There's offices upstairs, 2 halls.
And-
And the meeting room was big enough for that could house quite a few, but it was also technological. They had whiteboard.
So it would be the first time it was used for
No,
meetings
they
and
were, I don't know how many years ago it was. It was probably maybe prior to when Chamber went to their new building, but I don't know, but I had partaken in meetings up there. It's a neat, reliable space.
I think it's a
Have
great
it.
opportunity to ensure that we have our own municipal building right in the center of town, and also ensuring that it becomes a used building and doesn't just sit there vacant for however long it takes somebody to invest in it or rent it. I think it's a great option. I was also curious about the price, if you had the price of 2B, because that seems like that would check a number of boxes too, unless it's more than,
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt here. The variants of option 2 were not able to be priced, just given we put them together this morning.
Yeah.
So
I can appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put Josh in a panic as I started to scroll down. All the options 2, that further expand on 2, not able to put together, as Josh pointed out, very quick turnaround. As a matter of fact, again, just meeting with BMO this morning. But in 2B, I would point out, while this would allow for continuous operations within the fire department, and as that new construction happens on the north side of the site, once they are relocated and a second phase of construction happens, that's renovating this additional space, while it's less of an issue to accommodate the admin, park rec, and where those departments are displaced during a renovation, it still is a bit of a hassle for the, not just staff, but public as well, trying to access staff. And so that is where I would also say a potential remodel of a different building than one we're in would allow for that pretty seamless transition of services, as that renovation could be underway while we're staying here, and the new fire department is being constructed north of the site.
Can I just ask a quick question, and maybe I misunderstood? I think when you were going through the numbers, you said option 3C, so the two locations, fire station here, city hall, essentially on the north part of this property. You had mentioned a $20 million price tag.
Yep.
And so the difference, just so that I'm making sure that I'm thinking this through correctly, the difference between that and 2B is essentially we're just going to renovate what's here and not rebuild.
Correct.
Okay. Because what I agree with everything that's been said in terms of my priority, but I would also say that I would like to keep it out of the 20s. So that 18 price tag is what I've had in my mind, and so that's something I feel like I can cross off that one, the 20 million with the keeping City Hall to the north and renovating this for the fire station. So if you want something to cross off, I feel like I could cross off that one.
So that's actually 3C is new construction for both sites. They are
Right,
just two
right.
separate buildings. Yep.
Meaning I could
Okay,
cross that, we could cross that off.
Perfect. Well, assuming other council,
In my mind, if it's 20 million, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not interested in going deeper than the 18 gets us everything we want, for sure. It's, you know, like I don't think we need to look for other options that are more expensive.
Having sat in on the meeting today with BMO, it was short and sweet, because obviously we didn't have any set numbers or anything like that to go off of. But their one major hang-up was they needed to get the assessed value of that building, as well as get the assessed value of the property that we own over here. So that was their only real holdup. So it's basically a matter of them getting somebody on site to make those assessments for them. They seemed very willing to try to make this thing work if that was feasible, depending on the financials of it. And I'm in agreement with Steve here on this thing too. I think this north side for the fire station makes the most sense for everything. And then if we can make something work with BMO or renovate this spot here or whatever, it makes the most sense for everything.
I'm going to speak up now. Christopher Musinolich asked me to share some comments regarding his perspective, and I'll do my best to represent them, but I told him if I get anything wrong, he should feel free to clarify. So he had asked me to say that, you know, at the outset coming into today, and he hasn't heard all of this new information, he continued up until that today to support option 3, that he thought that was probably the best. When I mentioned to him the possibility of occupying Bank of the, or BMO, excuse me, with city admin and Parks and Rec, he said that, you know, he was intrigued by it. He could see a lot of the positives, but he did mention his concerns with trading one old building full of issues for potentially another one. And he said that we should be real careful to do our due diligence, more or less, if that's the route that seems best for us to pursue. So I appreciated that perspective. I wanted to make sure that I shared that. And my general sense is that, you know, Christopher was, you know, excited about some of these different possibilities, and I suspect would you know, if we all agreed on something, I think he would also be in support. So.
Yeah, I had a conversation with him also. I think the other thing too, he wanted more information on city leasing versus land swap, just in case, you know,
Yeah,
leasing
right.
may not be as stable, but you know, That was just one of his.
Right, yeah, I think that's right, Mayor. He mentioned to me that one of the reasons he was more attracted to option 3, as presented last time, than some of the other options were that, even if we did options 1 or 2, we'd still need to find lease space for the city. And Travis's, numbers showed where the break even would be. He thought that, those numbers were potentially worrisome. He wanted to kind of, and he made a salient point too that if we were to lease space, that's probably coming out of our general fund and not out of
That was the
debt
other-
service, and that does put us in a position where we probably have to do some creative juggling. So I'm going to take off Christopher's hat now, and if you have any questions, you can talk to him about it.
I do want to point out, did have a follow-up email received by that developer that I've been talking with on a possible public-private partnership on a lease. And he thought, based on, I had a conversation with him about if the city of Decorah were to enter into maybe a tax increment financing rebate, a TIF rebate, that could help maybe lower the initial construction costs, which would in turn lower our potential lease rate. And that was still around upwards of $20 a square foot. So again, that does come out of the general fund on a lease, and at $20 a square foot times 9,000 square feet, that's still $18,000, or excuse me, $180,000. I gotta do the math better. $180,000 a year on a lease.
And is
And
that
it-
for the new building?
That'd be a rough estimate he gave me on a lease rate for a new construction at 9,000 square foot.
It doesn't give the city any asset, or the public. It doesn't give the public any asset. And I do think that if the public is going to lay out a substantial amount of funds yearly, they should have an asset to show for it. So I'm not very attracted to the idea of leasing in general because of that.
I think a factor that we should consider, because it's an important one, is also the effects of this on tax rolls. That if, for instance, we were to move to the Bank of the West building, I think unless we had commercial tenants somewhere paying commercial rent, that would be removed from the tax rolls. It's currently $60,000 county tax bill.
63.
We get about 30 of it, I think.
Right.
So that's important to remember. If we were to lease from a private owner, I think that would be on the tax rolls. Is that accurate? Although he'd be spending our money to give to us. So I think it's important that we also be cognizant that that's another issue. For me, I think the value of activating, I suspect that we would actually raise the tax value of the entire downtown, actually, by activating such an important and central building.
And I do think in this scenario, they would then do something down here that might activate more taxes too. So I mean, I think if
Right.
the idea is to land swap, I think we're gonna get a better asset than we have down here as well. That would help the tax roll. So
So just to be clear, so you're talking about the new building in the north part and renovating this one,
What I'm,
this area for.
I was only talking about sort of tax implications.
Right, I gotcha.
As far as like which way we go forward, which is of course the decision tonight, we shouldn't talk about whether it's better to build on a garbage dump or a riverbed. We should talk about how do we proceed tonight given the
Which is a
information we have.
workshop.
But I guess what I'm saying is like
Right,
let's leave that to the engineers. I think that one last sort of look at the cheapest option on our page, that first option, which comes in at $12,500 for a remodel of this and removing city admin and Parks and Rec from this building, basically a new fire bay, right? Is that kind of how that would work?
Yeah, so-
Apparatus bay would be new, decontamination. It's like a lot of the equipment-related things would be new. This would be remodeled. If we can do that for really the $12,500 that's in the packet, and then find a home for city admin and Parks and Rec at Bank of the West or elsewhere, I wonder if that's not the best value proposition for Decorah. But I know we're kind of going back to something that you all indicated that you were ready to move on from last week. I'm curious, given this new possibility with Bank of the West, if that's something that you all are interested in. I would love to tell the voters we found something that fills all our needs for $14 million instead of the $18 we were going to come to you for.
And I think, I mean, when you say 14, I don't think we can do it for 12 because we would have to renovate.
That's
So
why I threw in another number.
I
yeah.
mean, I would agree that if that all comes to fruition and we get to save money, but I still think for the bond, we're gonna have to ask for the 18, not knowing what that is gonna be. And you know, I mean, I really like the up to 18 because hopefully people have listened to the meetings, or at least we'll go back and listen and see how much we've deliberated about trying to be frugal in this endeavor, yet meet all the needs and think forward for the future. And we will stick to that, and I hope people see that.
I quite agree with you.
The other benefit I think that we gain if we choose to go with this north side location for the fire department is that you're gaining a lot of space down here that's kind of wasted space at this point in time, that we could utilize it for something valuable within the city, whatever that might be. But we're gaining a lot of space that, you know, we're restricted in this bowl that we live in with the space we've got. So freeing up some space for something else would be real beneficial for the city.
And I do like the idea of the build on the north for that, because right now the building's awkwardly placed on a space now that we have additional space from the Army Reserve. And so this would allow us to better use this space and figure out if there's additional assets we could have here for the city. So
I think, go ahead. I think if we build on the north site, I think if we build on the north side of this site in particular, we should be really thoughtful about site plan, layout, and accessibility, especially if city admin building is there, because the easy thing to do would be to build sort of a city hall version of Target where it's back behind a big parking lot, and I don't think that is in line with the best traditional wisdom of how cities are constructed. I think there's a reason this building sits on the street and is accessible to the public. And I want to continue to maintain that accessibility, even if it requires being creative because of a different site.
Right.
But you know, when you look at some of the other cities that have just recently built brand new fire stations, that's going to be, you know, it will be a valuable building even of its own self if it's in the north part.
So while this is a bit of a pipe dream, essentially, one of the other rationale by positioning on the far north side, especially if it's a fire department only project on this site, we would then have the police department, law enforcement on the east side of the property, fire department response next to that, and continue to move counterclockwise. We have the Army Reserve Center, and this is the pipe dream part, that eventually they're going to get tired of paying the bills for that building, and they're going to want to finally move out. This space here, I think it would be a great location for a public works building, especially with the maintenance bay on the far north end of the Army Reserve Center site. And to Stephen's point about having that very close, this space is sufficient to potentially relocate admin back down to this space here with the Army Reserve Center. And then in turn, we've made adjustments to a downtown building that's now marketable.
right.
Now that's very pipe dream type stuff. but-
Decorah man has plans for other people's land.
Exactly,
Yeah, that's-
right? Technically, it's our land. They're just have a building
We
on
just
it.
want it back. Maybe we should ask Ashley Hinson one more time before she leaves office.
You're doing the press's work, Steve. You're right in the headline.
So, but what I'm getting at is, to Stephen's point about the planning of the overall site layout, I do think long-term there's other considerations, especially when you take into consideration the Army Reserve site.
Sure.
I think the thing that's cool is you have options to look at. It's not like going up and stopping and we drop it. There's several different options to be able to look to see how something new can be built. And I find that really exciting.
I share Emily's idea of not wanting to exceed that $20 million number. One of those options that you had laid out went to like 19 something. Is that something we should consider, like going to 19,
So,
whatever it was?
before anyone answers that, what I
Okay.
should actually point out, and with the updated soil condition numbers,
What
Right.
page are you
the
on?
construction, so I'm now on page 24 of the packet. Excuse me, sorry. I clicked up. On page 24 of the packet, this is the construction plus soft costs plus contingency. Appears to be a decent amount of conservative numbers associated with it. However, it is 18.4 on the construction side. And this is essentially the new option 3 cost.
Sure.
Right.
Our agenda item tonight is from 10 to 18 million. So unfortunately, if we want a bond to cover the costs associated with this project, we'll see you guys again next week on Monday. Because we have to post the agenda, the actual par amount, as it's called, which would cover all the closing costs and everything associated, would be about 18.8. And that is also included in Dropbox. 18.4, I guess. Or no, the par is 18.88 million.
I mean, we'd
That's
have to look
page
at it
29.
again. We'd have to look at it again at the next city council meeting, which is
Correct.
Monday.
We'd have to consider approval next council meeting because of the dollar amount.
Can I ask, what are we pricing remodeling of this space at per square foot for admin? Is that $20 a square foot? Am I remembering that right? For admin, though, not for fire department?
Well, that's
No.
re-
Oh, no,
that
I'm thinking
was-
of a different thing then. Yeah. So what's the number?
I would say that might have been the lease. That was the lease.
Oh,
rate.
thank you. You're right. Yeah.
Yep. I would say the remodel for the admin side. Josh, I don't suppose you remember off. the
Yeah,
top of
I
your
was
head?
asking partially him. Yeah, I should have said his name. I'm sorry.
I can grab it here. It's from the last meeting.
Yeah, I think it was $250 a square foot for a heavy remodel.
Thank you.
So what I was kind of wondering is like, we don't have a proxy for knowing what Bank of the West is going to be like or anything like that. But, you know, 200, that's closer than probably anything else we get. If we're talking about 14,000 square feet at Bank of the West, remodeled to the same standards that we were talking about for admin here, that number is 3.5 million. I'd like to point out that, you know, if the Bank of the West, BMO, excuse me, you know, every year goes to the county and says their assessment's too high, so I'm sure that they would not value their building at the full 2 million. They'd want to sell it for less. I'm sure of that. And, you know, but let's say that they do want the whole 2 million. If we do that plus remodel for 375, we have a, you know, demolition and new construction bid here for 13.5. Like those numbers are all, when you add them together, still below, you know, that 18.5 number too. So I feel like there's good options with the right fire department. And getting to a bond at that 18.8 number is where you're at. I think we should come back next week and consider that agenda item.
You mean come back to a 19 or an 18.5?
18.8 is what I want to do.
18.8. I like 18.8 because then it's,
Yeah, I think that says to the community what is clear. We have done our homework and we know what the most this could cost is.
yeah.
And if they listen to this meeting, they know that we will look, if we can get the price down from there, we will. And still accomplish our goals for fire department that is modern and goes to bond this November.
And there's several options available to get that
Yep.
number far less than that.
Yeah.
Not far less, but less than that.
And again, I'll point out, I do think it's very, very important to note, this includes a new fire station regardless of the situation.
Yep.
Regardless of admin, park rec, this is a new fire station.
I'm not quite ready to give up on option one if we find a good home for city admin. But that would be a new apparatus bay attached to a completely remodeled this side of the building for other fire station programming, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's pretty new. I'd love to hear from actually fire representatives in the attendance. I'd love to hear from you after the meeting about your thoughts on, you know, option one versus some of these other things we're considering.
I think I agree. I understand the savings, Steve, and but I also understand the importance of the public understanding what we're really doing, which is investing in fire. And maybe the fire station guys will tell us differently, but I do think new construction is in the best interest of the fire department. And so I don't want to confuse the bond issue, like, maybe we're just gonna remodel it, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's okay to say to the public, like, you're gonna get a new fire station, and the best bang for your buck for the rest of City Hall. And we have lots of room to deal with how we plant, park, and rec, and city admins. But our main focus is building a new fire station, and that's what we're doing. So I think that's an important message, personally. Then, you know, we're gonna pass this bond, and it may be that we're just gonna remodel the fire station, or I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking
I do
passing
want to
bond.
point out that what we currently think of as the fire station in every one of these plans, including option 1, comes down and goes, and a new apparatus bay goes up somewhere, right? That
The
option
apparatus
1
bay
does
part.
not remodel.
Right, no, I just
anything
think that, I think the
way.
language of we're getting a new fire station is important, because we're getting a new fire station.
I would feel comfortable using that language if we're tearing down the current fire
Okay.
station and putting up a new apparatus bay. But that's option 1.
Well, it's a lot of knuckleballs that got thrown out. And again,
A
2
lot of
months
what?
ago, when we started talking about this, we said we were gonna do it for 10 million. And that's what we asked ISG to come back, what can we do for 10 million? We've gone from 10 to 12, now potentially up to 20, 21. So it's a lot to digest. It's a lot of different things going, and now the BMO thing. Not so sure what the cost of renovating that to make it handicap accessible, especially from the back alley. That's gonna be pricey. There's no lift system in there unless you wanna do just a basic lift coming in. There's a lot of variables, and again, you know, we don't have a plan. It's like we're unplanned, so let's just get a big number and then we'll figure it out from there.
Well, you do have a plan, you've got.
Well, yeah, we got a plan.
You've
We're
got
gonna
three
either
plans.
build there or we're gonna do this
I know,
or
but you've
that.
also got, I think you've starting to get answers to the 3 plans that have been presented to you.
Right, no, yes, but
Yeah.
to sell this, especially
No, I
in
know.
today's market
I know.
and with what's going on elsewhere in the community, I mean, we're asking for a
I
big number
understand.
from our voters. Do we have a commitment from the rural fire trustees as part of the fire department build?
I think your question's really good, Randy, and I'm curious, do you have
we
a
have-
specific action that we could take tonight that would best serve the voters to suggest?
Well, that's where, you know,
Because that's what we're all trying to do.
I know, and we're up here talking about 3, 4 different things. How do we make that clear so the voters understand what's going on?
I feel like what we have to decide on tonight is ballot language, and that by the time voters go to the ballot, even before voters go to early voting, they're gonna have a clear idea what they're voting for. Because we just need time to figure out and so by saying 18-9, or whatever it was, 18-8, what we're allowing the city to do is to best utilize the space we have here and explore a potential option with BMO. But that BMO might fall flat, in which case we know that we have now written a bond that will get us the space needs we need for all of our city functions and a new fire station. And I think voters can understand that. I do. I mean, I trust the voters. They trust us. They elected us to make these decisions. I think they'll go to the ballot box knowing this is the most that's going to be spent, and in doing so, these are all all we're going to get. And if we spend less, we're still going to get that. I think that's what voters need to know.
And I think your point is well taken, that by the time voters go to the polls, I think we'll have a very good idea of what we're looking at and what we're planning to do, so that people won't just be voting on $18.8 million, just throwing it out there and letting us decide how to spend it.
Yeah.
I think they'll have a really good idea of what we're planning to do.
And I was just going to say, like the school, you know, that was 18 years of our community knowing we needed a school. We know we need a new fire station. We've been talking about it for a long time. This isn't going to be a surprise to voters. And I actually think that they might think, I mean, if you had asked me 5 years ago what a new fire station was going to be, I was going to think we were going to have to spend like 25. So we're trying really hard to get this thing under 20, and I think we're doing it.
I think Randy's other question that I want to follow up on, and it's a good one, is what about the rural trustees? And how do we bring them into this conversation as soon as possible? I'd like to bring them to the table, you know, maybe we should be reaching out to them like tomorrow.
Correct. So I do want to hold a meeting with them prior to, of course, prior to the bond vote, but sooner rather than later. I have some thoughts on how best to approach them and what the ask might be, whether it's initial capital up front, or what I would recommend is we make that ask to offset our debt service levy. As we talked about the last meeting, especially those first 5 years, while we have Locust Road on, first 4 in particular, the 5th year it drops off quite a bit. But those first 4 years, it's a significant, when you stack all of those payments together, that debt service levy gets into the $6. What I would like to ask of the rural fire department is for a contribution over the span of the 20-year debt for the fire station building, an annual payment to service that debt, but ask them to front load the payment. And then after year 4 or 5, it tapers way down, and what that'll do is it'll allow us to take that increase, shave off the top, and then hold that steady once Locust Road drops off.
Yeah, I think that's a great
And
thought.
they have significant savings. Rural Fire has significant savings that I think they could use to do that. I also think that they recently, it was either this year or last year, had to, because of their significant savings, had to actually lower the levy that they were getting, especially from the 2 townships that only get rescue. And so they have capacity to levy more, and they have significant savings. And I think it's time. I think it is time for that conversation.
Which, and that conversation isn't just coming to them, I think, with an ask. I think, you know, if we're telling them that they ought to be, and they ought to be, fair financial partners in this endeavor to serve all the people that this fire department serves, then I think they ought to have some input into what we put up too. You know, if we're asking them to write a big check, which I will, I think it's fair for them to look at these options with us and say, you know, this seems like it makes sense and this doesn't.
Yeah,
That's why I want to bring them to the table ASAP.
No, I agree. Thanks, Randy, for bringing that up. That's a really good point. Brent, did you have any? Haven't heard from you on anything. Any thoughts, ideas?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm on Zoom. I was running a little late. This kind of was the best option. I've kind of been just sitting back, kind of hearing everybody. I like a lot about what was said tonight. I'm really intrigued with the north building on the north, the Bank of the West building as a possible remodel. I really like that idea. I kind of want to give kudos to Travis to kind of make those continuation and make those conversations happen, even though that we kind of had some ideas of what we were going to do the last meeting, but still giving us more options that I think are really great options that may benefit us better. And as far as back to the point of the rural fire districts, I definitely think that we need to be approaching them. I think Randy and Steve, great points that we need to be approaching them and saying, hey, this serves all of us, and that they need to help contribute with that.
And I do know some of that groundwork's been, that lower, we'll call it entry-level groundwork's been made on, you know, as this project comes, that current contribution rate's not going to cut it. So I know that groundwork has been at least laid.
And we did talk to them. The last large meeting that we had with Rural Fire, when we reset the rates, we had already expressed that this was coming and that they had said they have savings. So I think it should be expected. And
I think, you know, I think the other thing is obviously when we were talking about 10 million, you know, how all of a sudden are we talking about 18.8? I think that's a reasonable point. And I want to point out that I've been right there with others saying, can we please try to figure out a way to do this for less money? I think you all remember I even dragged my feet and fought pretty hard against moving forward with our former architect because I didn't like the numbers. We've now gotten these numbers from multiple architects, and I think that, you know, I've spent more time learning about this building's condition too, and it doesn't seem like there's a magical third option to do what we need to do to serve the people for 10. It just doesn't seem like that's a possibility. And so what we need to do is let the voters decide if they want to invest what it takes to build a new fire department or not. And I know that there's a lot of other like decisions here, but that's the big one. And I feel like we're all on the same page, or at least most of us are. And so I personally think that a meeting next Monday where we consider 18.8 million bond language is the way to move forward. I have one more suggestion for how to make this decision a little bit cleaner. In the meantime, as much information as we can get out about the possibility of and the costs of working with BMO, doing a switch there. What would happen with a land swap? Would that drop our price tag? I want to know that. I want to know how much rehabilitation that building would need. Is that $250 a square foot number reasonable, or do we need to tweak it up or down? That's information that I know it's hard to get in a week, but the sooner we get it, the better we can serve the voters by saying we're going to cut that option off, or we're going full speed ahead on that option, and now all we need to worry is looking at this site, where's the best place to build the new fire station, or tear down that and build here. It's like that seems like a pretty simple way to proceed with the decision. Pursue Bank of the West or BMO if that's where the council's at. That's where I'm at, and then if that is satisfactory, if that's possible, go down that road, build a new fire station on this site somewhere. And that's a decision we can make pretty shortly, I think. And if it doesn't work, then I think we've talked enough to know that probably what we're going to ask the voters to do is build for 18.8 somewhere right here. Yep. That to me seems like the sense of the council, but I want to hear if anyone disagrees with that.
I know Travis tried to arrange to get us in there today to look at it, which didn't work out, but I think we're trying to get that arranged for as soon as possible, so.
I'll call
I mean,
again tomorrow.
not that we'll know exact numbers by just looking at it, that's for sure, but we're attempting.
I think I'd like to echo what Emily said earlier as far as public owned versus public rented. That's kind of renting from a private ownership is out for me as well. I think it's better for the community to outright own what they're putting taxes towards. I think asking for the 18.8 with the understanding that we're going to try to do our level best to get it down as low as possible is the good option to do it. I would really like to see if the BMO works out. I think that'd be great to have a centrally located municipal building right on Water Street. Prevents the old building from sitting vacant. I'm also very intrigued by option 2B, just in terms of it wouldn't get us a new municipal building. It would get us a new fire department, but we could renovate for a lot. I would assume a lot less, because it was under the understanding that we would have to renovate this building to bring it up to code to match the new fire department. Whereas if we're not building the new fire department connected to this building, we wouldn't have to bring it up to code to the same extent that we would had the fire department been attached to this building. So I think that also would appease the folks that for historical significance of this architecture, local architecture. I know that there are problems with that, with structural integrity, so I would like to look at that, but it would be interesting to get a breakdown on 2B just to see what that would cost. So I think asking for what it would take to build all new for everything at the top dollar, with a preference for me personally to deeply look into the BMO and have a centrally located municipal building. Or 2B, if that's kind of somewhere in the middle, I'd like to see that be an option as well. So,
Brent, what's your thoughts on a bond referendum 18.8? Would you be on board with something like that?
Yeah, I'd be on board with the 18.8. I think that's good as far as, to let the public know. I think we've hit a lot of good points that, we need to let the public know that we're going to build a new fire station. That is the max that we're going to go to, not to exceed that. And we're going to look at all these different options to get them the best bang for their buck. And, hopefully we don't get to 18.8 and hopefully we can do something for less. But I think now a bond referendum has to be set, the language does. So, almost having it at that 18.8 and working our best to get it below that, I think is our best option.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate we're only allowed to do this once a year.
I was gonna say, and I think another really important message
Yeah.
is it's 18.8 this year, and if we have to do it again, it could be over 20 the next time. So 18.8, let's keep it at 18.8. Vote for the
And
bond.
Travis's other point, I think, is that if we could do this in a March election or something,
Of
then we
course.
could have better information and a more concrete
Right.
plan.
Right.
But our hands are tied, and we can't delay any long. We can't wait another year to get moving on this fire station.
And
It'll take a year to build. So.
I think lesson learned with the school as well. Like you said, it was 18 years from when they started before they finally got it onto a bond. And I think it went from like 18 million up to 38 million in that period of time. So the longer we keep pushing this down the road, the more it's gonna cost in the long run.
Okay,
All right, see you next week.
no, we've got
we
one
got
more
one.
item.
I know. I'm
Okay,
saying as far as this item,
okay,
no action tonight.
okay,
We'll do it next week.
okay, the second.
Well, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Josh.
Josh.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Josh.
Yeah.
We're excited for the talking points.
Yep, thanks much.
Yeah, take care. Bye.
The next one is discussion and possible action on Decorah Athletic Complex Community Attraction and Tourism Grant. It was myself and Mark, and actually Steve was there, along with members of the fundraising committee. Let's see, the good thing is they didn't take a vote, because it could have acted
That's
differently.
good, huh?
Well, you got to take some wins. The second thing is, I think that there is some room for commitment on a 3-year, for a 3-year commitment. I may let Mark speak more if he has any other comments that he wants to make on it. I know that 2 of the Board of Supervisors still held strong. There was a third one that was not ready to vote, but would have a decision by next week, and was he's the one that actually asked Stephanie Fromm to come forward and talk again, and they asked if they could make a 3-year commitment and not start till next year. Would that still be applicable for the grant? And she said yes.
What kind of numbers were they kicking around or thinking about anyway?
I think they talked about $100,000 divided between all the municipalities
That's
in proportion
correct.
to population. That was my sense of kind of the high water mark of what they would consider. So I think that would lead to Decorah getting 60 or 70, I don't know.
71,690. Right.
Yeah. Which I think, I spent some, I'm sorry, you asked Mark to say something. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you.
No, I think I definitely know 500,000's out of the picture, but that was something that they referenced, and there was a good graphic to break down as far as contributions, what was coming from private donors within the city and outside of the city, and it's almost 50-50 as far as fundraising. And then also had the graphic for businesses that are contributing, and then as Steve referenced to what $100,000 contribution would be broken down per capita throughout the county.
I was going to say it'd be the
Correct.
whole county, though, not just municipalities, or just municipalities?
Just, yeah, there's a list of.
Do you have a copy of that
I
electronically?
think I do. Yeah, I can
don't-
hand
yeah,
that
if you
out.
could get that, because I like the idea of how they approached it, because they kept saying that the other cities are not getting anything, and they don't. So this would be a total amount that they would commit, and then it would be broken down to city according to population.
But rural residents would also contribute.
I think that, I don't think that sort of non-municipal residents were part of this discussion. Is that, I'm not sure what you're,
Yeah, because I'm not quite sure.
Well, if the county's throwing
Wouldn't
money.
it be for the rec activities for like Calmer's, Billville,
Right.
Fort,
Yep.
Ridgeway.
Yeah,
for the
because
rec
they,
or
Right.
park facilities.
But if the county's throwing the money in, then all county
Right.
residents would be contributing to this.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an all-county tax, correct?
probably,
unless, I mean, they could spend the money from any number of funds that didn't.
I'm
come
just
from
curious because,
property
you know, I mean,
taxes.
there are Decorah residents who don't live in the municipality. And so what we're saying is, and they are the most likely to be using this facility. So essentially what we're saying is that they will be left out of the support network.
I
Okay.
yeah.
I think
Okay.
the per capita breakdown, Emily. So I just take a step back. They're saying that they would contribute $100,000 in general, but they would divide it to every municipality in proportion to how many residents that they had. So they take the whole municipalized population of the county, maybe 10,000 people, and they apportion the money per capita.
Okay.
Right, and then if they choose, let's say like with Calmer,
Now I understand.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And
I'm sorry.
with-
They're gonna levy 100,000 and then they're gonna
Right.
distribute it to the
Right.
municipality.
but they could wait, you know, like, let's say Calmer wasn't ready, but there would be money there available.
Now I 100% understand. I was thinking you were saying they were gonna levy for this
No,
only with, okay, I apologize. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I understand now. Yeah.
The way that it was said earlier was confusing.
So I'm sorry if I contributed.
No, that's okay. That's why I was so
You
like,
can- I think it would help, Mark, if you can get copies for them to look at or send them electronically. Oh, okay, that would help. So at least there's a bit of a window.
I think this is a good week to lobby on behalf of the city with all the supervisors and explain to them that this contribution on the behalf of the county would simply be a continuation of a long history of county-city partnerships. As recently as a few months ago, Travis reminded me of this today, the city spent $17,000 to acquire property from the county's right-of-way to expand Palisades Park. The property we acquired is a ditch. It will be a ditch. You know, it'll be.
The total's not quite established yet, but it's gonna be probably around that mark, yeah.
So, I'm sorry. Thank you for the corrections. Van Penen Park, and $17,000 or so to acquire something that honestly won't enhance Decorah Park services all that much. It'll expand our territory a bit. Maybe it'll make it safer to go around, which is the reason that we chose to do this, because it was safer not just for Decorah residents, but for everyone who uses that road, which is located in the county. And I think that those kinds of partnerships are important, and I think that that's what the voters want us to be doing. I think that's true of the average voter in the county and the average voter in the city, that they want Decorah and the county to continue to work together the way that we have in the past. And I, for one, really hope that we can, because this is not the last time that one of our organizations is going to want to ask for a CAT grant. And I would hate to establish a precedent that we don't have the county's back when they come asking for a CAT grant support indication. And I'd hate to establish the precedent that the county doesn't have our back when we come to ask them for participation. It's $500,000 that's on the table that we would not be accessing if the county chose to go through with this. And I really hope that they strongly reconsider and listen to all of their voters, not just the ones who call them and that they know best. So I really hope that they don't set this precedent. It would not serve any voters in our county well.
Amen to that. I want to thank Travis and Mark and Stephanie Fromm and everybody that's gone to bat for us up there to try to get this thing done. I appreciate all the effort that's gone into that. That's great.
Well, and it was important that the fundraising committee was there. Who all was
If
there?
I may add,
Yeah,
is this thing coming through okay?
yeah,
There are a number of of the fundraising team that are not residents of the city of Decorah too. It's about, I think it's close to 40% that do not live in the city as well. And they have been writing letters and communicating with the county board of supervisors as well. And that will continue.
I wanted to also say another thing that I talked to Mark about this morning, and that's that the reason that these CAT grants were established is because the state government thinks it's really important for cities and county governments to work together, especially on things that generate economic and tourism activity that serve not just the city but the surrounding community. That's the whole reason for this CAT grant. The people at the state who put it into place wanted it to work this way, and so I'm just asking that it work this way. I know that I think as a city, it would have been good for us to involve the county earlier than we did. And I kind of wish we had. If we were going to make a significant ask of the county for participation, we probably should have had them participate at the earliest stages of planning processes. But this is still a good project, and a lot of people did contribute to making sure it's going to be a good project. And county contribution is just critical to making it happen.
Okay, anything else?
What I want to run through real quickly is when we talked about the CAT grant application, there were two main things that came up as a priority of both the park board as well as council was permanent restroom, concession stand facilities, as well as lighting. And lighting is a number we have a firm cost estimate on, and that's $529,000 for the pickleball courts and 2 ball fields. So in theory, we could cut the 2 ball fields in half, which was about $355,000 for the 2 total. So we could cut that down. It's 175 out of that 529. We're still down to 354,000. We also have a current budget deficit of 254,000 and change based on the current private funds raised. So that exceeds our CAT grant application of $500,000 should we submit that. Largely pointing that out because we had talked about different projects or different parts of the project that we would apply for. The first and foremost was making up the existing fundraising gap. And then secondarily, what else can we add to the project? It's currently looking like lighting for the pickleball courts and potentially 1 field at this point.
What's
That's just the lighting. The conduit's already gonna be.
The conduits all run in the base under the concrete portion. Now it doesn't go along the outfield lines and stuff because that's part of your lighting design. Like I talked with Marceau Electric about this as well. As he pointed out, he said, Travis, if you were to run all the conduit underground along the outfield lines, you're then having to dig it all back up, cut it, add another splice so that it comes up and under your footings that you're going to pour for your light posts. He goes, you're not cash ahead for anywhere that's not under pavement.
Okay.
So yeah, it's all under the pavement, not under not under the grass.
have we had any more fundraising come in that we know of?
This last week's been a little slower. There's a lot of ifs still out there. Do you know what the total on the ifs are? Or not ifs, excuse me. Ifs sound bad. A lot of pending.
Undecided.
Pending.
So
It's
it would be
about
great-
90,000 in pending right now. We're waiting on some confirmations from some larger donors.
That would be great to get solidified before we wrote for the CAT grant, because then we would know a little bit more of what we would have ultimately. And then my other question, and I maybe have pulled this out of a dream I had, but I vaguely remember when we were negotiating with the school district for the sale of the land, and we were going to, in partnership with Luther College, build pickleball courts up at Luther and have a racket is this ringing a bell? Racket complex, that the school district had said that they would contribute to paying for lighting.
That was we were going to contribute the lighting.
We were going to contribute the lighting, not
Correct.
for Luther. And was that in
Because-
partnership with the school district?
Correct, because the conversation there was that was our contribution to the overall project costs.
Okay, is there
Whoever's
any
gonna
room for the
supply
school
the-
district to contribute now that we're not doing the racquetball complex there, but we're doing it at the athletic complex?
I can make that ask.
Right, that, the whole reason we have pickleball now out there is because, we didn't solidify it in the contract, we just had thought that racket sports were gonna be up there together as a community. So now we've put it here. It does seem like the school district had that commitment to us, and maybe we could ask them to help with the lighting for the pickleball courts.
I can make that ask.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. I won't speculate at all about their $38 million project and already.
I just think it's important for people to know that that was a conversation that was had and a commitment that we were doing together, and I'm not trying to, it wouldn't be an unreasonable ask, I don't think.
Well, relatively not. I'll put it that way.
Can always ask.
I can make that ask.
The worst they can do is say no.
Exactly.
So unless, time is a bit of the essence. I really don't want to drag our feet too much longer on this CAT grant application. But, fingers crossed that the county supervisors will potentially take action at their meeting on Monday. And then that means Monday night at the council meeting, we can have updated numbers, talk where we're at with the project, and having a plan for moving forward with that CAT grant.
I want to stress what the mayor said. They did show warmth and openness, especially when it was shared with them that a commitment that didn't start this year, that's something that they could plan for in their budget, spread out over 3 years. When they found out that that would qualify for CAT grant status just as well as writing a big check tomorrow, that they warmed to the idea somewhat. And so I do think that it's worth pressing a little bit this week and just continuing to invite them to continue the partnership that we've had for a long time.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Meeting adjourned.